Hey there, welcome to Crew Chats. Today we are on our 15th episode, so we are really excited to have you here today. We are going to be talking today about ad tracking and Marketo. So just as a little bit of housekeeping before we start, if you've missed any of our previous episodes, you can always check them out on YouTube or in the Marketo community where we can keep this conversation going. If you have any questions during or after the episode, feel free to tweet to us using the hashtag CrewChats. Sorry we don't have our lower thirds. Google Hangouts has been doing some fun stuff recently, and we're not entirely sure where our lower thirds have gone, but it's CrewChats with an S. And you can feel free to follow any of us on Twitter, but we don't have our lower thirds. So you can find our Twitter handles in the Marketo community. So with that, you might notice today that I look a little bit like Joe if I'm not speaking. My name is coming up as Joe, but obviously I'm Dora Viscagliosi, Senior Marketing Operations Manager at Datto. Unfortunately, some of the guys couldn't join us today, but fortunately that means we have a lady crew. So
Hey.
Our fun fact of the day is how long we've been using Marketo. So I have been using Marketo since May of 2012, which kind of makes me old. Let's jump over to Smugs.
Hi, I'm Smugs. My parents call me Sydney. I am Senior Marketing Operations Analyst at Phreesia. I have been using Marketo for almost 2 years, so not that long. Shout out to my initial Marketo sales rep, Blake Zamudio. You changed my life.
Cool. And I am Rachel, and I am a growth and marketing operations analyst at Adobe. And I have been using Marketo for about 2 years, and prior to that we were using HubSpot, so I led the transition over. So that was a lot of fun, and I fell in love with Marketo then.
Awesome. So to get our conversation rolling today, who wants to jump into what ad tracking is and why does it matter?
I can do it. Okay, so lots of companies use ads, right? There's lots of different types of ads. There's online ads, there's PPC, there's print ads, which are their own beast. But what everyone wants to know, and what is kind of hard to pin down unless you're really cool and have Marketo and know how to track your ads, is what's the ROI on our ads? How many leads are we getting in? How many opportunities are coming from them for themselves? So that's ad tracking. We're going to track the ads in Marketo.
Awesome. So what are some of the basic methods that we're going to use for ad tracking?
Well, I'll jump in a little bit. I didn't actually build our advertising structure within Marketo, but I work closely with the guy who did. And outside of Marketo, we use Google AdWords. We use just a few, TubeMogul, which was our company before it got acquired by Adobe, was an advertising company. So, cookies and all that good stuff that I don't know that we're going to spend a whole bunch of time getting into, but that's and other platforms that you're advertising on are a good way to advertising from a non-lead specific way. So like Sydney said, there's two different sides to it. You have your kind of anonymous traffic as far as clicks and completion rates and all that stuff goes. And then on the Marketo side, there's definitely a way, you need to find a way to tie in known ad clicks. And we do that via URL parameters. We have just a few different things that we have set up that automatically those parameters set up within links on the ads, and it's automatically set, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But that's kind of how we do it. We use URL parameters. We track original conversion rate, session conversion rate, and golden conversion rate, which I can also get into in a little bit when we go into first and last touch and multi-touch stuff.
Awesome, thanks. So we had Jeff join. Jeff, do you want to give a quick intro as well as our fun fact for this week, which is how long you've been using Marketo?
So I'll start with the fun fact. I've been using Marketo for 3+ years. Been certified twice now, hoping for a third time come the new certification process. My intro, I'll just say I'm Jeff Krajewski, marketing automation specialist, formerly with PR Newswire, and I'm always open for the right role at the right time.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. So Rachel was just mentioning URL parameters, and as some of us, or hopefully all of us know, there's really nothing native to Marketo as far as tracking parameters. So what are you guys doing? What are some best practices? How are you tracking all of this information? Because there's a lot of information to be capturing.
Yeah, I can start. I'm sure Rachel has like a very in-depth, coming from an ad company, I'm sure you can talk a lot more about this than I can. But at my last company, it was just another like mid-sized B2B software company. We did a lot of print advertising for the education sector, and we did a lot of online advertising for our other markets. For both of those, I mean, the UTM parameters are our best friend, not just for Marketo, but for Google Analytics. In this circumstance, I kind of feel like Google Analytics and Marketo a little bit complete each other. Like there's information in each one that you can't get from the other, and you really need both of them to get sure of what's going on. Marketo is really great at saying, like, this lead converted from your ad. They filled out the form if you were driving to a gated page, and it came from this ad. And you can do that using the fills out form trigger with the, if you add the constraint for a query string, the UTM parameters that you get from your Google Analytics link builder. It's really great if it's someone that is driving to a gated page, fills out a form, and then lots of happy magic and Marketo happens. But if that doesn't happen, if you're just driving to like a general information page or a blog that you don't want to gate, it's hard to track in Marketo. They have to already have a Marketo cookie in their browser to hope that they're still in the same browser that has the cookie. If they haven't cleared their cookies, it's really hit or miss. So I don't trust, this is how many people responded to your ad. That's where I trust Google Analytics to be the source of truth.
Yeah, and it really depends on how you're tracking. If you're using the UTM parameters, I've actually used a combination of UTM and custom parameters in the past. So using custom parameters also at certain times allows you the access to not only use Google Analytics, but to track within Marketo itself. Once they hit that landing page, there's a lot of times there's this interruption between that they do for the Google tracking. There's certain other interruptions in the process that happen, but eventually what ends up occurring is they hopefully land on your web page. So through that, with the custom parameters on top of not just the Google parameters, if you implement these, the original lead source, last lead source, other certain parameters that you might want to implement, what the campaign might be, or other items, you can certainly track that through both Marketo and have more of a complete picture through the two systems.
Yeah, so I guess it would be worthwhile to mention kind of like the standard parameters. So the 5 standard UTM parameters are going to be campaign, content, medium, source, and term. So if you look on like a URL that you click on from an ad or something along those lines, or even a lot of times from an email, you'll see, UTM_campaign equals ampersand UTM_ content equals, and then a value for each of those. So just in case that's not something that you're familiar with, these are where the information lies within the URL or the link that you're clicking in. Now, a lot of people will keep track of these on like a spreadsheet or something else because you're developing a lot of these. So do you guys have any best practices or things that you've seen in the past or currently for how you're both generating these URLs to ensure that you're consistently creating them, as well as storing the information so that you're able to, look back on it and not create the same thing twice or something along those lines?
So
yeah, I can jump in. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Oh, no. Well, so
Rachel, go.
So we have a couple different ways that we do this. So for one thing, first and foremost, agree with your team on what campaign, content, medium, and source and term mean. Medium and source are pretty standard across the board, but our team went around in circles deciding what type of thing went into campaign, content, and term. So it's not always clear, different people set it up different ways, but that will affect the way that you view things within Google AdWords as well as within Marketo tracking once you set that all up. The other thing I would say is that, for one thing, there's an add-on to Google Chrome. There's actually a few of them. If you use Google Chrome, download the add-on. It has it all built in right there. You just put in your URL and then you put in your terms and it automatically builds the link for you. From my team, though, is we set up a shared Excel sheet or a Google Doc or whatever that had it all kind of laid out within it was just one of the sheets or one of the tabs in the doc, and it was all built out with an Excel formula, and it was just plug and play. So it was put your URL here. Okay, now what is your content term? What is your campaign term, medium, source, etc.? And then the last column is the full URL. And from there, you just enter each line as a new. That way, you have a list of all of the ad tracking or all of the links for ad tracking that you need, so everybody has access and can see what URLs that were used recently were, I guess.
Awesome. Jeff, you had something?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, a similar thought process is that we've, in the past, I've used spreadsheets with my teams. We've had the process where you go in and you make sure, campaign specifically, that it's unique. A lot of times the source or the medium, there are certain defaults within Google. However, you can get around those. For example, with my company I was with, Legrand, they actually utilized, and something that I helped to implement when we were sending out our own email campaigns, we would actually tag that as email versus a standard method that would not necessarily tag it as an email. So you may need to, depending on what your methodology is and what the particular medium or even source, the source, a lot of times they refer to the direct website that someone is coming from. So in that regard, you want to make sure that you do have that granularity. You have that ability to delve into the report if you need to. And if you really don't, if you're early on in your maturity model, then make sure you keep it simple. Keep it super simple. Make sure that you're going from crawl, walk to run. If you don't need that level of data yet, maybe you don't have to implement such a high level of analytics. So as your company does.
Awesome. So we almost touched on this before, but Rachel, it sounds like you held off. But let's get to the idea of first touch or last touch or multi-touch. And because obviously now we're talking about 5 different fields that we're collecting in addition to any possible custom fields. And, should we be collecting the first touch? Should we be collecting the last touch? Should we be collecting first and last touch? So what kind of collection are you guys typically doing? And I want to hear about this golden conversion.
I also know about the golden conversion.
Okay, so long story short about how we built our advertising structure is that Jessica Cross, who is now at AdRoll, she presented at the San Francisco Mug, I want to say a year and a half ago, and I was and bushy-tailed and was like, tell me everything that you know about advertising. So she and I communicated via email, and she sent me screenshots of her ad structure. And this was around the time that Marketo got rid of anonymous leads in the system. So go through, basically it's a combination of like parsing out the values from the URL. So somebody clicks on a link, and you have to find a way to store the UTM value on the lead record. I don't know how that works. I'm not a coder, so my dev colleague Ryan figured all of that stuff out. But so we went through like 3 iterations of our advertising structure, and one, we had to cut out like creating new leads without email addresses because we were storing data, email address, because we had, we were creating a new field. We were filling, the UTM field or whatever. Moving away from that, we came up with a structure where we have session conversions and golden conversions. So session conversions mean that somebody clicked on an ad. So, okay, well, let me back up for a second. Sorry, this is taking so long. I'm like trying to organize my thoughts. We created a new blinking type of content, program type for advertising. So we have clicked ad, session conversion, original conversion, golden conversion. Clicked ad means they clicked the ad, didn't convert on anything. Maybe there wasn't a form on the page that they landed on to convert with. Maybe, they did convert, whatever, and then they would be on a session conversion. So session conversion means they converted right off of that click. So they clicked on the ad, came to the website, either on that page they converted because there was a form, or they ended up on another page on the website and converted within that session. And we have some structure in there about like, it was within a certain amount of time of coming to the website, they, clicked on less than X number of pages or something like that. I can look into it while somebody else is talking. That's like if they're an existing lead, or, they just converted when they come in through the ad. Original conversion is that the ad is the first point at which that person converted on our website. So the advertisement is actually how the person came in to the program. So like, or came into our system. So that's like how we got their email address. And then golden conversion is that combination of the two. So like they clicked on the ad. I'm trying to think if I'm saying this properly, but I think that the basic idea is that they clicked on the ad, and that ad that they clicked on is not only did they convert there, but that was the first point at which they converted. And like, it's kind of like the holy grail of advertisement conversion. So when you're talking about a direct response advertisement or whatever, that's the golden conversion. Original conversion, they could have clicked around a little bit. That's just the first time that, it was an ad that brought them in the first time. It's stored in their cookies, all of that stuff. Session conversion is already in the system, and they're, converting on an ad eventually. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I don't that it does. Sorry, I haven't slept very much in the past 24 hours. So
it definitely
but
does.
yeah, anyway, that's golden conversion.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like that it's called golden conversion. It makes it feel very special. I did want to add one thing. So storing the UTM parameters, I at least know how I did that, and yours may have been more fancy. You can add a hidden field on your form that someone's converting on, and but have the hidden field value grabbed from the UTM parameter, and just say like, I don't remember exactly what it says. I think it's grab it from the query string, but you say what the query string value is that it's pulling from, and then it stores it in that hidden field on the lead record.
Yeah, so hidden fields are a great way to collect that information. Go ahead, Jeff, sorry.
So I'm getting a lot of choppiness. I don't know if it's the internet here with everyone home in Connecticut.
Oh, yeah. No.
snow day. Anyway, I just wanted to chime in on the golden conversion, being the last item that someone consumed or that they interacted with before they actually converted or the deal was sealed, or they converted to an opportunity. You can take it a number of ways. You can take it as the opportunity was converted, or you can take it also as an opportunity was created. So golden may have different meanings depending on the company or the type of business that you're in. As to the first and last, and even multi-touch, that's a big thing. Being able to have fields, and a lot of times they're custom fields where you would attribute that first content offer, the first form, or depending on what it is that you're offering to your clients. That first piece that they interact with, and how do you measure that? How do you stamp that? How do you market that this is when it happened, that this is what it was, and from there to track through the process, here are the other individual pieces that they might interact with or that they did. And then ultimately, what is the last one that drove them to, like we said, the golden, which is either that opportunity created or that opportunity is closed.
So I just really quickly on that too. So we basically have, this is where, I don't know, some people might say that we're using Request Campaign a little too much, but it's kind of the best way that we could figure out how to get people into the programs that we need to get them. We basically break out our ad programs by content, and we have like a master, smart campaigns that basically, like, whenever somebody clicks on a link, there's, we're calling on, a field or something, or a link that we have that we're tracking on. And based off of the content, based off of the values within the UTM parameters, we then send them to different programs. So if the campaign matches, an ad type, so we did a viewability white paper for advertising. We did an Independence Matters campaign or a webinar or something like that we're advertising on. That's the content, and we have a specific way that that's set up so that it matches the name of the program, of the ad program, along with the UTM content parameter. That sends them to the correct program, and then from there it processes the session conversion, the original conversion, whether it's the source or medium, and then we also have lists that are populated based off of like what the source is, or so like I'm looking at, so we have like ad medium by quarter, so it's like Q1 2016, Q2 2016. And if you go into each of those programs, there are static lists that are populated by like a display ad or a mobile ad or an out-of-home ad or whatever. And so all of those lists are populated based off of the UTM content. So without doing all that much work, you're able to kind of like slice and dice and view, okay, how many people came in through a print ad, content that they were looking at.
So that's really interesting. So basically what you're suggesting is, and this is just opposite of one other way that I was thinking of doing all this tracking, but what you're suggesting is basically tracking within a program as opposed to, and using lists, mostly static lists, as opposed to tracking all of this on the individual lead record.
So it's tracked within the individual lead record as well.
Okay. But if there were multiple campaigns or something else, you're going to lose those values within the individual lead record. Whereas if you're looking at multiple programs, you could have a member of multiple programs, which I really like. So the reason I mentioned tracking it on the lead record as well is because Eric Heldebro actually just wrote, sorry, Eric, if I just butchered your name at all, but just wrote a blog entry in the Champions blog about 2 weeks ago about first touch, last touch, and multi-touch attribution for UTM parameters. So I thought that was a really neat piece as well that kind of dives into all of this on the lead level. But I like the program level as well.
Mm-hmm.
I also just wanted to add, this may be just intuitive, but I never intuitively thought of it before someone told me. But for print ads, obviously you're not going to print a URL that has UTM_source equals whatever. So we had our web guy set up redirects from our website that said, like, you know, the name of whatever publication we were putting it in and the name of our company, like as just a quick extension of our website URL, and it automatically redirected to that UTM link so that we were still able to get the tracking, but the printing didn't look horrible. And also no one's going to type that in.
Yeah, that is a very good point, Sydney. Yeah, same with out of home. So like out of home, print ad, anything that people aren't just like inherently clicking on, you can either do a redirect, or you could even do like a short link. You know, you could use a bit.ly or something and get a custom short link developed for your company. I don't think it costs all that much money, and you could use that.
Oh, also, by the way, I heard that request campaigns are not actually that big of a deal. So sorry to whoever's whole presentation it is that it's really bad to do it. Unless your database is like gigantic, just live your life and do as many request campaigns as you want.
YOLO.
YOLO Marketo.
Okay, so we're getting close on time, so I just want to cover like reporting. Any key things that we should really be focusing on for reporting on UTMs that we haven't already touched on here?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just to make sure that, you know, again, if you're not tracking it, put in parameters or put in place, you know, the variables in your instance and fields to make sure that you are capturing that first touch and that last touch. You know, first touch should only have one ability to be recorded. Otherwise, you're screwed. But you know, make sure you've got that in place and that you've got the variables there, the fields that you can report on. So if you do put them in place, you can then take that and, you know, even if you're not measuring necessarily the dollars won or conversions out of it, at least you can say, here are the campaigns, you know, by attributing or using, you know, RCE or otherwise, you can take that and you can say, here are the campaigns that are influencing the touches. And from there, you can build upon your programs.
Yeah, I just to like add on to that, I think the biggest thing that I was asked for reporting wise from our ad program spend at my last company was ROI. I think ads are, for a lot of companies, one of the biggest places that you invest money, and also one of the most mysterious places you invest money. The trade show, you walk out with a list of people that you talk to, an ad just throw out into the universe and cross your fingers. So I think it's really important, like Rachel mentioned earlier, to have a separate channel, set up an admin specifically for advertising so you can pull that out and report on it specifically, and have different program statuses that match directly to advertising. And always put in period cost. A lot of our programs, our ad programs, particularly online, ran over several months. So it was my not very fun job to go in at the end of every month and put in the period cost that we spent a month so that we could track those leads back to the time that the ad ran and the lead was acquired.
And a big thing, just to mention period cost, as you did, Sydney, is if you don't know what the cost is, make sure you put at least one in the field.
Not zero.
Because you can't. Yeah, you cannot divide by zero.
Well, even if you're dividing zero a million different ways, it's always going to be zero. It's just not very impactful. If you divide 1 3 different ways, it's 33 cents. Divide it 10 different ways, it's 10 cents. It's at least a little more. But a better idea of what happened.
Nice. Touche.
Yeah, so I think the only thing that we didn't really get to that is native to Marketo is AdBridge. Does anybody have any quick thoughts on AdBridge, or have you used it, familiar with it?
The only thing that I'm familiar with about AdBridge is that it won't, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dory, because I think that you have used it maybe, but my understanding is that it'll match based on email address. So if you're like targeting like on LinkedIn or whatever, it'll only work if the email address on the person's LinkedIn profile matches the email address within your database. So like for me, I don't use my adobe.com email address for my LinkedIn profile. I use my personal Gmail account. So if that's the case and you're trying to target me, you're not going to reach me on LinkedIn because I don't use that same email address.
Yeah, you know, I don't.
That is one of the shortcomings of it.
Yeah.
And that's been addressed in many sessions between University Day and otherwise at previous summits. You know, this past summit, they had quite a bit on average. So if the materials are still up there on the Marketo community, go and review them. But one of the things that I did happen to, you know, be able to attend the session for was 2 individual sessions on average. And there is a lot of power. But as Rachel mentioned, you know, if you don't have that unifying factor of the email address, whether it's the singular email field or it's a secondary, you know, personal email or secondary email or you know, tertiary email, if you don't have that to be able to take that and unify the record, then you do lose a little bit of the power that you do have with that platform.
Cool. Yeah, we'll have to get into that more in another episode. But unfortunately, or fortunately, no, unfortunately, we are at time for today, and we want to be conscious of everyone else's schedule. So if you are watching this, we appreciate it. And join us again in 2 weeks for episode 16. And don't forget, we are getting super close to Summit. And, you know, we're totally looking forward to rocking out in San Francisco. And who knows? You might be able to catch us winning some awards, or I don't know. Come on, Marketo, throw us a bone.
Up on the stage, you never know.
You never know. I mean, we've been having a live chat. So whatever it ends up being, be sure to catch us at Summit. We can't wait to see everybody there. Talk to you in 2 weeks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.